Welcome back to Crypto Win Rate. Today we will be talking about HyperRFi, the all-in-one DeFi app on the HyperEVM. Now this is the fourth video in a series where I have gone through 5 of the most popular dApps on the HyperEVM, talking about how to use them and how to farm points for future airdrops. We talked about HyperLend, which is a borrowing and lending platform. We talked about HyperSwap, which is a swapping platform where you can also provide liquidity. And we talked about Felix, which is mainly a CDP platform with their own little borrowing and lending as well. And now we are talking about HyperRFi, which kind of encapsulates all of those applications together. It's a very interesting app, and I'm looking forward to going through it. So let's just click on the features quickly here. We can see some of the things we can do on HyperRFi. Yield for hype, so we can lend assets, borrow and loop, so borrow USDXL to buy more assets or use on Hyperliquid DEX and across HyperEVM DeFi. And we can mint USDXL through over collateralized assets. That is actually one of USDXL's main features, is it has a nice core basket of assets that you can use as collateral. Right, so these are just a couple features. Let's get into the application and we will go through every section. So right off the bat, the first thing you want to do is connect your wallet. My wallet is already connected, but just go ahead and do that. I will give you a second. And we can see I have a little hype that I'm going to use later. So the starting page is just a quick borrow page. All right, it connects you to the markets here, and we can borrow and lend assets just through this dashboard. We can also mint USDXL. Now it says borrow, but what we are doing is minting and putting up collateral, and we can see all the different assets that we can use as collateral. Now, just in summary, what USDXL is it's a decentralized, over collateralized synthetic dollar, and it targets parity with the US dollar. I'm going to leave a link in the description to the documentations so you can read more about USDXL. When it comes to this section here, if I would put up some hype to deposit, we can then use this here to see how much we want to mint, right? Obviously, we want to stay away from the liquidation threshold. I would usually, stay in the yellow zone or even green. We did go over health factor, what the LTV is, how interest rates work for borrowing and lending in the HyperLend video. So I'm just going to leave a link in the description. So if you do want to learn more about that, you can get up to speed watching that video. So that is the quick borrow section. We're going to go through everything else, but I quickly want to head over to points right here. Now, in my opinion, out of all the dApps that I've used on Hyperliquid so far, I really enjoy the HyperRFi points system, as it actually tells you what to earn and it gives you the multipliers, right? So it can tell you what to do to earn certain points. So for example, HyperSwap, we can swap hype for USDXL and we will gain 10x points. If we pooled USOL, we're getting 2x points. So you get the picture. It tells you what to do. Whereas other points programs, they don't really say anything. You just kind of have to assume that everything you're doing on the dApp will earn you a certain amount of points. And we also see down here, it tells you how to earn partner points as well, which I really like. So that is the points program. I'm not going to go over each spot individually. If you want to know the multiplier, you'll just have to check here, right? So that's where to earn. And then this is your points. And we can see there is a claim code, so a referral code. I'm going to leave a link to HyperRFi and our code in the description. So if you do want to sign up for the points program, you're more than welcome to use our code if you want to support the channel. And lastly, we can see the leaderboard if you want to check out how other people are doing with their points. So that is the point system. Now let's just go back to the top and we can look at the dashboard. Here we can see the separate pooled and isolated markets. I will talk about that when we get into the market section. But when we do make a position, I will come back here so we can see what the dashboard looks at. These are all the assets that are available to deposit and the assets that are available to borrow. Now let's head over to the markets. We see pooled and isolated. First, we're going to check out pooled markets. We can see the total market size, 270 million, what's available, and the borrows. As we saw on the dashboard, these are all the assets that we can borrow and lend. We have the total supplied, the deposit APY, total borrowed, and the borrowing APY. And we could also see where we are eligible for points. Now, the difference between pooled markets and isolated markets is pretty simple. Pooled markets means all of these tokens can be used as collateral when someone is borrowing your funds. So if you are lending Hype to borrowers in a pooled market, they can use any of these assets as collateral to borrow your Hype, all right? But then in isolated markets, they are single markets. So if you are lending Hype, the only collateral that people can use to borrow your Hype would be HyperPi Hype. If you are lending USDTO in this isolated market, the only collateral that can be used to borrow your USDTO is looped Hype. So in terms of what's better, it all just depends on your preference, and we could check out the APYs and also the points multipliers to maybe help us decide what markets we want to be a part of. I will say with isolated markets, the markets tend to be a lot smaller. So although right now you see some high APYs, they could fluctuate quickly as the liquidity is just a lot less, so meaning it will be more volatile. That is the difference between pooled and isolated markets. I am going to just lend to the pooled markets. So I'm just going to click on Hype. We can see the deposit APY right now is 2.5%. So that's what I'll be earning when I'm lending my Hype. We can see the max LTV is 60% and the liquidation threshold is 80%. Now, again, I did explain this more in depth in my Hyperland video, but pretty much we can borrow up to 60% against our Hype. And if we don't pay back our loan and our collateral reaches an 80% LTV ratio, we will be liquidated, causing us to pay the liquidation penalty of 8%. So we do not want to do that. We always want to stay far away from the liquidation threshold. It's not fun. I can tell you from firsthand experience. Here we can see the monthly borrowing rate. I always like when applications show you, and especially when they give you an average, because again, they can fluctuate, and also we have the supply rate. And the last thing we could talk about here is E mode. So if you are borrowing and lending between wrap type, wrap stake type, and K Hype, you could actually use E mode to increase your LTV to 90%. So that will give you a lot more borrowing room. We actually see that option in Quick Borrow. Just gonna head back for a second. We see up here E mode, and we can see that no E mode is for most of these assets, but we do have the Hype correlated that can be used for E mode, but it's just inactive right now. So anyway, let's get back to our Hype here. Let's deposit. Let's deposit 0.15, so 649. We have collateralization enabled, meaning we can use this as collateral to borrow another asset. We can just deposit this here, confirm it in our wallet. Congrats, all done. Now let's view this in our dashboard. We can now see in the pooled market section, my collateral. Here we can see our deposits, the APY I'm getting, and the points. So depositing Hype right now is 7x points, which is pretty great. Now the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to borrow against our Hype, using it as collateral. Now I could do that in the dashboard section, right? We can see all the different assets we can borrow and the APY, but I'm gonna do it in the quick borrow section to show you how quickly you can do that. So we see I already have my Hype deposited here. So we can just choose now quickly what we wanna borrow. I wanna borrow some USDTO. I'm gonna be paying 13% to borrow that. And now we can choose how much we wanna borrow. Hype can be a volatile asset, so I don't want to take that risk. So I'm going to stay in the yellow and keep my health factor around 2.5 or about half of the max LTV. I'm just going to look at my borrow. I'm happy with that, and I'm going to continue, confirm that. And that is how we lend and borrow on HyperFi. We can see what we've borrowed, our deposits, the APY we're making. And yeah, so if we wanted to repay our USDTO, it is in our wallet right now. Here it is. We could just click repay max and repay our loan, and then we could take out our Hype deposit. So that's a nice little overview on the market section. Next thing we can do is check out the vaults here. And all this is you can stake your USDXL if you have minted it to earn some extra yield. It automates your earnings with ease with strategy vaults. So we have a 10.53% APY right now with 2x in points. Next, we can see here, we can actually swap within HyperFi. So this can make it more convenient than going out of the app and going to HyperSwap to swap your assets. I have a video all about swapping and liquidity provision on HyperSwap on the channel to help you understand more about swapping and how DEXs work. Now, the last thing we have here is transfer. we can use transfer to and from the HyperCore to the HyperEVM. HyperCore is the main Hyperliquid dApp, so we can see I have $1.79 in my spot account. So if I did want to transfer that to the HyperEVM, I could use this bridge. I'm also just going to click on deposit KHype because I'm sure you guys are curious about that. All this is just giving you a shortcut to the market to supply hype. So KHype is a new way to stake hype coming from the team at Kinetic. We are going to cover them in a future video, as well as other ways that you can stake your hype and the airdrop potential that comes with it. If you did like this video, remember you can like and subscribe to Crypto Win Rate. We also have a website at cryptowinrate.com. We have lots of crypto content and tons of educational guides you can sift through. If you want to get a 4% discount on trading fees on the Hyperliquid dApp, click the link in the description to create a Hyperliquid account. This link will apply code, which makes you eligible for a 4% discount fee. I hope you enjoyed my HypurrFi video. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.